future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Karolina.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karolina. I'm a founder and CEO of Beyond Play. I'm also an iGaming Next podcast host. Today, I've got Michael Brady with us. Currently, founder director of Eyas Gaming. Previously, also founder and a board member at Bede Gaming. Hi, Michael. Thanks for making time to be with us today.
Hello, Karolina. It's an absolute pleasure. I feel like you asked me a long, long time ago, and it's taken me quite a long time to say yes. Not that was down to a lack of enthusiasm.
No, it was always, I was always super enthusiastic about it, but we just never could align our schedules. And we even had this really cool idea to record this on the beach in Barcelona during WGS. I got COVID right before, so couldn't go. Did you make it in the end?
I did make it, but it was also about 12 degrees, so the idea of doing it on the beach probably wasn't quite as glamorous and aspirational as I perhaps thought it would be.
Yeah, it wasn't. We could have recorded it somewhere around Kew since we are neighbors. I really appreciate our walk, especially in the pandemic. It was a breath of fresh air to be able to see someone in person, even if it was social distance and outside. Still, it was a one-to-one meeting rather than Zoom. So
it was very pleasant. I think finding anybody to go for a walk with at that point was actually great. So it was it was good. It was good. And it was nice to be able to chat around about the time you were setting up the new business. It was really interesting.
Right. So let's get to the subject of talking about this podcast. I mean, you've got a pretty impressive career, started in corporate. I'm not going to go through the exact your bio, but you have some amazing names, on your resume to a certain extent. You work for Party Gaming, bwin. But I wanted to know how sort of developed into you founding your own business, sort of with a couple of people, and that was Bede. What made you think that you've got what it takes, and that there was a gap in the market, and Bede was going to fill that?
So I guess terrifyingly, this is year 22 of gaming. Which, when you look at your face on a screen, you realise I've actually been doing this for 22 years, and you're now knackered. It's been fascinating actually. So there was a little bit of time in corporate. I was actually part of the Cashcade business right at the start. Very small shareholder in that business, but had the privilege of working alongside the likes of Simon Collins and Patrick Southern, who built up the Foxy Bingo brand. So that, I guess, was my kind of introduction to the world of online gambling and gaming. Subsequent to that, I had a bunch of businesses in gaming, kind of marketing, affiliates, that kind of thing. All of which had moderate success, and it was obviously a time when the market was exploding. But I think for me, probably about 10 years into my career, if I can call it that, I had the opportunity to be part of setting up Bede Gaming. I was approached by my still partner, Gauselmann Smith, and he had an existing business up in Newcastle with a partner, Dan Smith, and they'd done a lot of work in kind of white labels with Playtech. The Crown Bingo brand was the main thing they were doing. But they were very keen to kind of expand that into the world of platform technology. I think some of their experience with providers had led them to the view that there was an opportunity to transform that market. So I guess I was brought in to really be the face of the business. I suppose the one thing I've been doing quite a lot over the years is getting out there and meeting people. So it was quite easy for me to be asked to come and kind of front up the business. There were a lot of clever people behind me doing all the work. And we set up Bede it was around about May 2012. In fact, it's very soon going to be 10 years old, which is amazing. Actually quite heartwarming to think now that, we've built a business that's, I think, 280 odd people strong now, has done some amazing stuff in Newcastle. And I like to think has, in some respects, transformed the provision of platform technology to the market.
I think the Newcastle hub was an interesting one as well, because I don't think that many people realize that there is a great talent pool in there. And I remember from a couple of different awards, your team has also been getting awards for really diverse workplace. So can you tell us a little bit about why did you decide around Newcastle? Have you seen sort of other tech businesses base themselves there, or how did it come along?
So I didn't know Newcastle at all well back in 2012. Dan, one of our co-founders, is a Newcastle lad, and he obviously had an existing business there, although it wasn't particularly technology based. It was more marketing. Um, what became very, very clear was that you had a really talented pool of people coming out of the universities there. So I think the catchment area for both Newcastle University, Durham University, and even Edinburgh University. There was so many kind of talented kids coming out of the university, and I think it was quite evident that the options around technology and certainly around being at the cutting edge of technology were quite limited for people in that area. It's also kind of if you think about the northeast. In a weird way, it's one of the kind of more isolated parts of the UK, and people tend to stay there. So you kind of have people who are very keen to stay in their local area because they love it and they're very proud of it. And then to give them an opportunity to work in something in what is a global industry, I think was a real opportunity. So in a way, Newcastle was always our hub. We did branch out quite quickly into Bulgaria, and we set up offices in Sofia, which gave us access to a different type of talent pool. That remains to this day and has grown, and they've been an integral part of building up Bede Gaming.
And can you tell me a little bit about just the evolution of sort of differentiation between platforms like Bede? When you were first starting out, you said it was all about proprietary technology, your ability to handle data in a modern way, and being in control of your own destiny. Do you think that has changed now? Is there still space for people to sort of innovate and come with a fresh new approach to sort of platform provider, aggregator, or is it all about the existing relationships, the content that you already have, and it's increasingly hard to even put your foot through the door?
I think there's a few questions there, Karolina. I think so. We go back to the first bit. What was the genus of the business? But back in 2012, we were also keen to operate, and we kind of were part of founding a operating business at the same time. We felt that by having an operating business as we built out our platform was actually a good move, contrary to what many people felt, that it would create conflict. For us, it was a good move because the operational experience hugely influenced the way we were building out our platform. The perception at the time, perhaps, was that there were technologies out there that were being built by techies, but not built for operators. And the techies, would build stuff that nobody would use. The utilization of some of the top platforms out there was very, very low. So whilst the tech might have been quite strong, the actual operational experience was quite poor. We felt that if we did both things simultaneously, we would allow an operator to drive and influence the direction of our tech. There were certainly some core values, and I think that, as the guy whose real job was to kind of sell it more than anything else, I wasn't the guy with the vision for what we did. They were far cleverer people than me, and the current MD of Bede Gaming, Alex Butcher, was kind of the CTO back then, and he was central to the vision that we had, and Dan too. I think there were many principles at play right at the start. I think that they were very, very keen to ensure that there was a real separation of concerns within the platform. And this stuff, I guess, people talk about this, sales guys talk about this all the time, and some of it's just sound bites. But I think back then, when a lot of the industry had been running on the likes of OpenBet, which was quite old technology, it was evident that a kind of one-to-many single code-based approach might have some credence in the market. And we were keen to build that out. We were keen to allow operators to have total optionality around the services they used around our technology. So we were keen to, be truly multi-vendor. We were keen then, and it sounds crazy thinking about it, but that was around about the time of the advent of mobile gaming. I mean, there wasn't much mobile gaming going on at that point. And we wanted to make sure that we were agnostic to device. Now, I remember saying that a million times at the time, and it's kind of laughable now almost because, we don't even think in those terms these days. But back then, there's a very limited portfolio of mobile content. the platforms weren't desperately well designed to support mobile content. We also, I suppose, had the trend of increased regulation and increased scrutiny. And as a consequence, we felt that if we built a technology that isolated data and could access all data and feed all that data into third-party products, then we might actually be able to keep up with the ever-increasing demands of the regulators. And I believe that's actually been the case. I think that back then and now, we're still incredibly well set to support operators in markets where there was a high demand for data and a high demand for transparency and scrutiny. I think that's still the case and isn't just some kind of bullshit soundbite that people throw out there.
So at the same time, we know you're talking about this really well-connected experience that the platform was built for the operator needs, and therefore it was a crucial element of the success of your B2C brands. Now, the brands must have had other elements of success as well, because when the first exit happened, you sold off the brands them on their own, right, to the buyers. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Where was a strategic fit for these two parties?
Yeah. So it took a number of years, but we built. So I was a shareholder in the business, and not a director of the business, but the team that we set up. We had a marketing team based in Newcastle, and we were licensed out in Oldham, in subsequently UKGC. We built a really strong team, and we had a multi-brand strategy. Obviously, our platform was still in the kind of evolutionary phase, so we were still building out the tech whilst we were running this business. It grew ridiculously fast, and some brands stroke domains that you perhaps wouldn't have anticipated becoming really strong became really strong. We were quite adept at the whole cross-sell piece. I think that was a big part of what we were doing. We were quite good at analysing the data and tailoring product set to those customers. And then, yes, the business, the assets of the business were sold to Leo Vegas. I think they were keen to improve their position in the UK market at the time.
So it was most prominent brand, I believe it was Royal Panda, and then 21.com, a couple of other ones, right?
Royal Panda wasn't actually us. That was a different business they bought. 21 was us. So they built two businesses around about the same time, didn't they? I think Royal Panda came first, but...
Stop, I need to take this out because I'm ex-Leo Vegas. I should fucking know that, so I'm just going to take this question out. Let's leave it there.
Royal Panda was the other thing, wasn't it? The other business that they bought out of Malta or something.
They were both on my maternity, so I don't remember who sold what. Anyway, let's take that one from the beginning. So I'll just say... So which were the brands that you guys sold and that were doing really well in UK?
There were quite a few. 21.co.uk, I think Pink Casino, Bet UK. We had quite a few brands, and we took the approach that we would put a brand out there. We would try to create some positioning in the market. We'd go on TV, and then we'd assess the success of that brand. And I'd say the marketing team in Newcastle, they were incredibly strong at analysing the data and trying to evaluate which brands to promote and which brands not to promote.
Mm-hmm. And what was the sort of the further journey for Bede? Because that has also, brought another deal. Can you tell us about that and sort of where Bede is going as a business in future? I understand that you're sort of involved in a different business now, but I'm sure you still have an eye on a vision and future plans.
I do, and I remain a director of Bede. So we go back to some of the key events with Bede. At the same time that Bede was supporting that operator business that I've mentioned, Bede also successfully secured the Rank contract, so took Rank off OpenBet, migrated over, and started to work with them on kind of the whole omni-channel experience with their retail estate, which I think was yielding really, really strong results for Rank over that period of time. Their digital business grew immeasurably. Since then, we focused a lot of our attention on being a technology platform for the lottery sector. We felt that we were well set for that because of the points I made earlier about regulation and kind of the need to be able to integrate lots of services around the tech. We felt we were quite well placed for that. So we went out and were part of quite an extensive and long drawn out procurement process in Ontario. We secured a contract with the Ontario Lottery That was comfortably the biggest project that we'd engaged in. We successfully migrated them off the IGT platform around about a year and a half ago. And I think Bede at that point kind of was quite well set to target the lottery sector, and still is. Around about the same time, so kind of early pandemic, so just as things were getting a bit rubbish, Bede sold a majority stake to the Gauselmann Group, and they kind of supported Bede through the pandemic, which was great. And allowed Bede to kind of build out the tech even further, not only to support their internal ambitions, particularly the German market, but also to build the technology to a point where it can be incredibly competitive in the lottery sector and beyond.
Talking about the German market, I want to ask you about sort of your new venture. But before you even get to that, knowing you and the fact that you've been at Bede for 10 years, it was being in a startup myself. I know that it's just such a full-on experience, the amount of work and stress and everything. And you guys took it through two major sort of acquisition deals and won a lot of customers. Why not take a break? What is it within your personality that pushes you to just jump right onto a next challenge and make yourself all the way busy again?
Well, I think number one, Karolina, I don't work as hard as you, so I don't think anyone does. So they're not good comparisons in the sense that I suppose the whole experience was amazing, but I was lucky enough to be surrounded by really hardworking, brilliant people, and that was a privilege. Bede went through all kinds of roller coasters as it grew. It grew really rapidly in terms of people and in terms of the pedigree of clients that Bede was securing. It was quite big stuff quite quickly, and I think that there were moments when I think myself and the other founders were quite taken aback by what we were achieving. And I love it. I particularly love the early stage. I think that the early stage when it's chaos is really quite good fun. I think that being surrounded by people prepared to get their hands dirty and get jobs done is you learn that those people are absolute gold dust in life, and this kind of you can probably count them on one hand. But I think in a way it's kind of just sort of happened. I don't think there's ever been a master plan. I think we had Bede. We were involved in this operator business. We sold a bit of Bede. The Gauselmann Group then subsequently approached Joe and I and said, we'd quite like to build an operator business with you, and that's what Eyas is. So we kind of, my appetite is unquenched. I do quite enjoy it. So my thirst is unquenched, and my appetite. And I think that watching Eyas grow in the last kind of year or so has been really quite exciting, and probably even more exciting than some of the stuff that we were involved in previously. The speed of the growth of that business has been crazy, and Gauselmann have been amazing partners in helping us do that. But I think that, I just think it's, I suppose 2 years off the industry where you're kind of sat watching, thinking, when are we all going to get back together? When are things going to happen again? Made me realise that it is actually quite a fun place to be. I'm not at all tired of it. I feel like you build up a network of people that you're happy in and want to hang out with. You feel like you know the ropes as well. And whilst I think there's vast amounts of innovation out there, there's still some quite traditional things working and doing well. So we're obviously all kind of obsessed with finding the next big thing, the next new thing. And I think there has been loads of innovation. But at the same time, some of the things that we do, which are core, still seem to work. And there's still obviously a captive audience for people providing kind of online gambling products.
I think it's often about the right combination of certain innovation elements and the things that work. Because if you're going to go with one way or the other, then it's difficult, right? But tell me a little bit, cause when you hear about, Gauselmann Group and Bede and your experience with the German market, and I think when Eyas launched, it was all about regulated German market, right? It was set as a potentially the big opportunity, and then all this sort of regulation came through, and a lot of talk about the unsustainability of this market and, the profitability challenges and everything. Sort of how did you navigate that, and what was the decision around the focus for Eyas going forward?
Right at the beginning, the idea was to build an operator business that could achieve operational excellence in whichever markets it chose to go into. And we were fortunate enough to have a blank sheet of paper to go and build products, to build a team that was, I think, the strongest team I've ever had the privilege to work with. We've cherry-picked from across the industry, both people with startup instincts and also people with vast experience working for some of the big tier one operators across the market. And we've given them the freedom to specialize and do what they've always wanted to do in the areas that they've, got great experience. That may sound like a throwaway comment, but I actually think that one of the experiences that a lot of people have working for the bigger corporates is that they feel horribly restricted by the limitations either of product, and in a way, businesses doing incredibly well can be quite complacent about the importance of optimizing and doing the best they can in certain areas. We've given our team enormous freedom to get on and build out tech. So in terms of markets, I feel like we've got a team now which is reasonably agnostic to whichever markets we go into. The German situation obviously evolved, and the taxation is challenging. I think everybody knows that certainly for a slots-based business, it's pretty challenging. It doesn't put us off, and I think that we continue to have ambitions in that market. We're fortunate to have an amazing partner in Gauselmann who will support us, and they themselves have an incredible footprint in the German retail space. So I think that we see the long-term opportunity will continue to do Germany. In the meantime, I think while we were applying for licenses and building towards that market, we've focused some of our attentions on the market that we know best, which is the UK market, and we've been working here in the UK. And again, going back to my earlier point about how certain traditional things still work, it's surprised me that the UK market remains a big opportunity. It's obviously, at the moment, a reasonably predictable taxation rate and reasonably predictable regulatory environment. And I think whilst the emphasis has changed towards, well, certainly there's been an evolution towards greater scrutiny and a greater focus on regulation, I think that there's still opportunities in this market, and we've been pleasantly surprised by the speed at which we've been able to grow in the market. It feels actually quite exciting.
It's actually interesting because it's the second sort of business founder that I'm talking to. I spoke to Savas from Mr. Q before, and he is also a hugely successful business in the UK market. We talked about navigating those challenges. Do you think it could be a certain sort of loop or a twist that the market is taking? Because it seemed for a while the regulatory landscape wasn't predictable. It seemed quite chaotic, and a lot of things came as a surprise. A lot of companies decided to withdraw from the market because it just required so much focus that will potentially impact on ability to focus on the other markets when it's not your priority to be in the UK. And do you think that could have created this opportunity for those young, fresh businesses that come into the market with full disclosure of what is it going to be needed from them, what kind of technology you need to support, the detailed data analysis around, responsible gaming features and social funds. And if you come to it with that right support from the beginning and you make it your core focus, it can actually deliver a proper yield for the business.
But perhaps a few years ago, I'd have agreed that the market was quite hostile, or at least felt like it was going to become more hostile. The reality is that if you've got good tech and you can support the regulatory requirements, which ultimately all seem to come down to data and quality of data and quality of kind of automated processes, and you can be as operationally excellent as you like, but if you don't have the tech to support what you should be doing, then it becomes quite challenging, I suspect. I think a lot of operators got found out because their tech wasn't very good. I suspect that's exactly how it's going to play out in the US as well, because there's all kinds of operators running on what we know to be very average tech. Stuff that wouldn't sell anymore in Europe has been sold for vast amounts in the US market, and is supporting enormous marketing budgets. And I think what people struggle to understand, or at least maybe we're so long in the tooth, we've been doing this for so long, when you look at some of the astronomical CPAs being paid by operators in the US, the retention requirements that they have now in order to make those customers profitable, and the analysis of the customer value, which is based on minimal data, is going to potentially lead to, I'd imagine, carnage. I think that I wouldn't want to particularly be operating in the US market right now, because why would I go somewhere where everybody wants to spend the maximum amount of money building market share? You can only have that strategy if you have total confidence that your technology and your operational processes are incredibly strong and durable and are actually going to make sure you can yield returns on those customers. And I think perhaps some of the recent movements in share prices are the beginnings of a realization from the market that this is, a little bit bubbly. But maybe I'm just bitter. Maybe I'm bitter because I'm not doing anything in the US and kind of probably not going to for quite a while. I don't know. I might just be convincing myself of that.
I don't think so, because I think it's already validated by even the regulator himself, because, at the launch of sports betting in New York, where I think the geo-comply numbers quoted around 1 million of new bettors being attracted to the market. There were, we talked about the ridiculous bonuses of 3,000 sign-up bonus and so on. And there was certain operators that went down for considerable amount of time, and that didn't go unnoticed by the regulator. The complaints were filed, and they did make a statement of, if you can't support this massive acquisition effort with the right technology, to make sure you can still process deposits and withdrawals and make sure that there is certain transparency around those bonuses, then we're going to take a look at that. So whether that's just statements or that's going to become reality, that's a different story, right? But you're totally, I feel, right. The customers are demanding right now, and the fact that the industry is maybe less mature in the US doesn't mean that the customers are less mature. Their needs are still shaped by fast-moving, super adaptive technology businesses around them. So
everything will ultimately come down. I mean, most failings occur because of either technology or failure of process. It's one or the other. So either you've got an inexperienced operational team that don't really know what they're doing and can't spot the problems, and therefore, or culturally have not been set up to really focus on customer first, customer protection first. Or you don't have the tech to support it. And I think when you look at the kind of litany of fines that have been moved around the industry, I think that a lot of it comes down to one of those two things. Either the tech couldn't support it, or the team didn't have access to the data they needed in order to do the right thing. And I think that's, to me, is a tale of woe.
Talking about a team, I want to start wrapping it up, because we're reaching the magic mark of when people start to tune out of podcasts. So I wanted to ask you about the team, because you've been now twice in a situation where you managed to create really astonishing teams around yourself. And how do you go about it? What is it that you sell to people as a dream to get them on board to an early startup, especially going to people saying, hey, do you want to work in a brand new operation that's going to either target one challenge, their regulatory challenge business environment, or another? How do people not get scared of this, So
that's a really, really good question, actually. I think, and obviously the most recent experience I've got is with Eyas as a founder director of that business. When we understood the vision for the business and we understood how we were going to work with Gauselmann, it became reasonably clear to me what I needed at the top of that business, and we had the time and the patience to be able to do things properly in a way which I can't really remember having in previous occasions when it felt like more of a scramble. With Eyas, we had the time to really put the foundations in place, and I think right at the beginning we wanted to set culture. So working with we brought a leadership team in before anything really, so we kind of filled up the top positions within the business in order to then filter down the rest of the team, and interviewing everybody at the top of the business. The big focus for me, and I was just one gate they had to get through, but the big focus for me was the character of the person and whether or not they were prepared to get their hands dirty, whether they had the hunger, often born of frustration from previous experiences, to go and do things a bit differently, whether they really got the idea of being a highly super regulated customer first business. We had a set of very clear values very early on for a business that's still only kind of 12 months old or something. We had a set of very clear values. And what's been really interesting to see is, you can't always get it right. But I think if you're willing to identify quite quickly where you've got it wrong, then you can quite rapidly build up a genuine, tangible culture within a business. And I say that, even at a time when we had COVID making things tougher to have that kind of physical empathy, physical sense of what people brought to the table. Even with that, I think with this business, the team and in particular Adam Joseph, who is our COO, has brought in people who are very much in his image and very much get it, and that actually it's only the beginnings, but it's starting to really yield the returns that you'd hope for.
Mm-hmm. Well, would be interesting to know for the last question really today is we talked a little bit about the strongest differentiation sort of points for a business like Bede before. So I wanted to get your thoughts on operator business nowadays. Has it changed? We talked a little bit, of course, about proprietary technology and ability to handle and segment and act on data. But if you were going to highlight, what is it? Is it about big marketing budgets these days? Is it about brand familiarity, product innovation, content sort of portfolio? What would be your top three sort of areas where you think operator needs to excel at?
I think you've got to be exceptional at knowing your customer. I think you've got to be really on the ball in terms of being able to have the safeguards in place that you need to manage the customer well. Because in a way, whilst we're keen to build a strong revenue business, we're also very, very keen to manage the downside of our business and ensure that the customer is protected. Ultimately, I think it does come down to data and the richness of the data and how well you interpret that data. So we spend, well, I don't, but the team spend a vast amount of time looking at the key kind of performance indicators that show our conversion rates from acquisition to deposit to value to retention. All of that is analysed in a granular way, and I haven't seen numbers quite like what I'm seeing now with this business, because we've never had, or I've never seen, an opportunity where you've truly started from a blank sheet of paper. And I go back to my earlier comments on Bede Gaming. I knew when I was out there selling that platform and encouraging people to use that platform, I understood the sound bites. I understood kind of what it was we felt we had as a point of difference. It's only really been with this business where I've had a best of breed operational team who had the opportunity to start from scratch, where we've actually seen that truly come through, in a way which is so meaningful and so material. You realise that the industry has been, to a degree, characterised by lots of inefficiency, and there are plenty of exceptions to that rule, by the way, because there's obviously great businesses who do exactly what I've just said, and they do it really well. But I think there's been lots of inefficiency, and I think that's born of complacency, because we've had astronomical numbers being created by some of these companies, but doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing it as optimally as they could do. They're just sort of, in a way, doing it despite their tech and despite, not being able to necessarily build operational efficiency the way you can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, it did, and I think it will be very useful to a lot of people listening. I sometimes in this podcast, when I talk to people that I interact with generally quite often, I forget about the subjects that we're supposed to cover because we talk so often that I don't know what we talked about already and we didn't. But I think in this podcast, we've covered a pretty wide spectrum of subjects, going from platform to operator and your journey. So I really appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to see what Eyas does next, where it goes. I think, as you said, it's still the ambitions for the German market are for sure something that is worth taking a notice to, because someone who will succeed in there would have done a very challenging, good job in a very challenging environment. So we'll be watching. Thank you very much, Michael. I hope to see you soon at a live event. likely Eyas is next one around, or maybe I'll bump into you on one of the neighborhood roads in the next couple of weeks.
Greatly appreciated. And Eyas, as I say, is built quite fast, and we've got lots of people, but we're always looking for more. So I think as we expand, I think if you're in Gibraltar or you're in Malta and you're looking for something new and a bit more innovative, then yeah, give us a shout, because we're definitely moving quite fast here.
Perfect. Great
Cool.
for highlighting that. Thanks very much, Michael.
Take care. Bye bye.